If you want to hear how a character from Unbreakable, Split, and Glass also appears in The Village, then stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Things You Missed. Today I'll be covering one of my favorite movies of all time, The Village. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you watch it first because you definitely don't want to spoil this one for yourself. This thing is such a masterpiece, and in the broadest sense, it's a story about the dangers of sheltering oneself. The village elders were each scarred by the horrible things that happened in the outside world, so they created the isolated village in the Covington Woods to keep themselves safe from the heartbreak that they endured in modern society. But after some time, their sheltering of themselves kept leading them back to that same heartbreak. They were blind to the fact that their new society was becoming the very reason for their suffering, and it would ironically take someone who is literally blind to help them see the solution. So in today's episode, I'm also going to be giving the gift of sight so that you can see a few things you missed. The opening scene is the perfect example of how backwards the state of affairs in the village has become. The entire community mourns the death of a young boy, the son of one of the village elders. We later find out that the reason for his death is because the village lacks any kind of medicine, and the elders have sworn an oath never to leave the confines of the village. A clue about the secret held by the elders can be found very close to the beginning of the movie.
You may run from sorrow as we have. Sorrow will find you.
Nobody is allowed to step foot beyond the barrier. They enforce this rule through the use of legends. The legends of the monsters in the woods surrounding the village draw inspiration from the idea of legends in real life. All throughout history, parents have made up and passed down stories to get their children to behave. In this case, those we do not speak of from the village are very similar to the monsters that ancient cartographers used to discourage sailors from exploring unknown areas of the seas. We even see a similar kind of warning painted on the rock at the edge of the village. Some of the legends are based on real things. The idea of the creatures in the woods was spawned by actual rumors in the area.
There did exist rumors of creatures in these woods. It is in one of the history books I used to teach in the towns.
And the practice of marking doors with red paint is pulled from the religious story of Passover, where the Israelites' homes were marked with lamb's blood and thus were passed over by the plague of death of the firstborn. There are other psychological tactics employed to keep people in the village through the use of fear. They've gone to great lengths to cover the village in the color yellow, which they call the protective color. They rid the village of any reds because the settlement is placed in the center of a large outgrowth of red berries. By conditioning the young to associate the color red with the monsters, they create a sense of danger for anyone who leaves the village. That's why Ivy is a perfect hero. Ivy is blind and therefore will not be scared by the color red. There's a running theme in director M. Night Shyamalan's movies where those who are impaired are stronger in some unforeseen way. We see it in Elijah and Kevin from the Eastrail trilogy, the Hess family in Signs, and Nana and Pop Pop from The Visit. There's also a strong link between The Village and Shyamalan's 2013 film After Earth. In The Village, Lucius theorizes that the creatures can sense emotion and fear, and Ivy later believes that she can pass through the woods safely because she has no fear. In After Earth, there are these monsters called Ursas who, like Ivy, are blind but are able to detect pheromones that the human body dispels when experiencing fear. But perhaps the story that most closely ties in with The Village is the story from Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. Each has three main characters. In The Village, we have Noah, who's mentally ill but physically strong, Ivy, who is physically impaired by her blindness but mentally strong, and Lucius, who is physically strong and mentally strong. The characters in the Eastrail trilogy fill the same roles. Kevin is mentally ill but physically strong, Elijah is physically broken but mentally a genius, and David Dunn is mentally and physically strong. Lucius and David Dunn even share the same trait of being the strong silent type. Both characters rarely open up their mouths. There's one more link that possibly puts these movies in literally the same universe. One signature of M. Night Shyamalan is that he almost always makes a cameo appearance in his movies. In Unbreakable, Split, and Glass, he plays one character named Jay, an IT guy responsible for setting up security cameras who appears in all three films. In The Village, he cameos as the guy reading the newspaper at the security hut, where his name is also Jay.
Hey Jay, where's the minion slaughter?
Maybe this means that all four films take place in the same universe together. Or that he just likes the name Jay. I mean, we'll probably never know for sure. One thing we do know that M. Night loves is Philadelphia. 11 of his 13 films take place there, and if you pay close attention, The Village is one of them. Mr. Walker mentions that he once taught history at the University of Pennsylvania, which is located in Philly. And the newspaper seen when Ivy leaves the woods to retrieve supplies is the Philadelphia Journal. The date seen on the newspaper is also the same as the movie's release date, July 30th, 2004. And if you look at the articles in this newspaper, they're almost all tragic headlines, which ties in with the idea of the elders wanting to escape the horrors of the real world and start their own society in the woods. One of the reasons that Ivy's father is comfortable with sending her is that she's visually blind, and she won't be able to convey the secrets of the real world when she returns. Even the escorts that set out with her are instructed not to venture past the road, so that she would be the only one to go over the wall and into the outside world. The wall that she climbs over is covered in vines of ivy, like all great walls are, and her name is literally Ivy Walker. She's the only one to go over the wall. It is also fitting that she be the one to go because the wildlife preserve that they're secretly living on was owned by her grandfather before his death. Ivy is blind blind, but she's able to sense a certain color that people give off that only her and her father can sense. And when Lucius was stabbed by Noah, she was no longer able to sense his color because he was dying.
I cannot see his color.
You could say that one major theme of the movie is that it is the things that we don't see that are the most significant. The villagers don't see what really lies beyond their community, the elders don't see what they have become is the very thing that they ran from, and Ivy does not see when she's holding the color red, which is used to scare people away from ever trying to leave the woods. This theme is also reflected in the cinematography. We end up looking away from many of the most significant events, from Ivy and Lucius's first kiss, to Noah's attack on Lucius, to the appearance of Noah in the woods dressed as the monster to try to kill Ivy, where our view is obstructed and we're forced to rely on our other senses to track the monster. Now, if he really had balls, he would have just made the whole movie black. Or maybe that's overkill. Or maybe it's a good podcast idea. Click the video on the left for the entire 144 things you missed in Shyamalan's East Rail 177 trilogy. And if you love horror, then remember to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week. Ring that death bell for notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.